2, 1.
7 things you probably didn't know you need to know. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Smart 7.
Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday the 29th of November, and it's National Chocolates Day. And a big happy birthday to Gemma Chan, Anna Faris, Lauren German and Ryan Giggs. Protests have continued to spread in China as citizens push back against Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy. Hundreds of demonstrators and police clashed from Beijing to Shanghai in the most significant public display of defiance since Tiananmen Square. The wave of civil disobedience is unprecedented in mainland China in the past decade and is the biggest test for President Xi Jinping since he secured a historic third term in power. One BBC journalist got caught up in the commotion. He was tackled and arrested by the Chinese police.
Hey, are you okay? Barry, call the consulate now.
Meanwhile, a protester outside the Chinese consulate in London said that the people need to stand up against their government's oppression.
People in China are being oppressed. Every group of people are being oppressed. And we have been oppressed for years and decades. And we want to change that. Somebody needs to stand up. We need to stand up to stand against this authoritarian regime.
And spokesperson for the Chinese Communist Party, Victor Gao, says he thinks the government will listen.
It is very rare for massive protests to take place in multiple cities in China. Therefore, I do believe that the Chinese government authorities will need to analyze the situation very carefully and do their best to heed the legitimate demands as expressed in many of these protests.
'Tis the season to go striking, apparently. With Christmas just around the corner, the unions are ramping up their industrial action with another round of strikes for rail workers, and the NHS are joining in on the walkouts too. Ambulance drivers, paramedics, cleaners, porters, catering staff, clerical workers and junior doctors are among those who could join nurses in walking out over the coming months. The TUC's head of public services, Kevin Rowan, blames the government.
The only thing that they feel they can do to try and get the government to listen to them is to take industrial action. You know, it's a real blight on this government, really, that we've got to this stage.
Meanwhile, the Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, responded to the claims that the military may be called in to drive ambulances and staff hospitals due to the strikes.
Of course, ideally, I'd love to see those strikes averted. I don't think anyone wants to see strikes in our NHS. It harms everybody and is to no one's advantage.
David Davis is calling for emergency legislation to be passed that would refuse all asylum seekers from safe countries who are paralysing the system. It's part of a plan put to Rishi Sunak by more than 50 Conservative MPs, arguing that asylum seekers from Albania should be summarily returned, as should those who say they've been trafficked.
It takes 420 days at last count to even get an initial decision for them. So that's paralysing the whole system, and it's unnecessary because Albania is a safe country.
But refugee groups are fighting back, saying the idea would breach the UN Refugee Convention. And Shadow Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds isn't impressed either.
They should take the money they're wasting on gimmicks like Rwanda and spend it on processing these claims, having the capacity we need, and everything else I think is just froth.
In Ukraine, the country's bracing itself for more mass missile attacks this week aimed at its power grid. But in between, the Russians are sporadically shelling cities with no apparent strategic aim other than to cause casualties. It comes as the First Lady of Ukraine visited Downing Street during her trip to London. Elena Zelensky is visiting the capital to participate in an international conference on the use of sexual assault and violence as a weapon in war. Speaking at the Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative, she addressed Russia's use of sexual violence.
This is another weapon in their arsenal in this war conflict. That is why it's extremely important to recognise this as a war crime.
Still to come on the Smart 7, it's the big England-Wales game tonight, and BBC Radio 4 reveals its Super Trooper guest editor for Christmas. Right after this. Welcome back. 3,
Monday saw Portugal and Brazil both head into the last 16 of the World Cup with relatively easy wins against Uruguay and Switzerland. England take on Wales on Tuesday night in what will be a mammoth showdown between the two British teams. It's their third and final game of Group B for the 2022 World Cup and will decide who goes through to the next round. Wales must beat England for the first time since 1984 to be in with a chance of making the knockout phase. And Gareth Bale seems adamant that Wales have what it takes.
The main thing for us all is we've stuck together as a group like we always done, and we'll fight again. We'll go on the pitch, we'll give everything, and I think our supporters know that no one can ever question our commitment, but we'll all stick together through thick and thin, through the ups and downs, and like I said, we'll give everything again tomorrow.
The guest editor lineup's been announced for Radio 4's Today programme. For the past 19 years, the programme's handed over the editorial reins to high-profile public figures during the week between Christmas and New Year. This year, it'll include Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, Jamie Oliver, and most surprisingly, musical legend ABBA's Bjorn Ulvaeus.
I'm really excited about this, because I've never had the possibility of having at my disposal an army of journalists who can go out and explore topics that I'm interested in and to find people for me to talk to.
Director of Whiplash and La La Land, Damien Chazelle's back with a brand new movie called Babylon. It's set in 1920s LA and stars Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie and Diego Calva. It's got everything you'd expect, outsized ambition and outrageous success as it tracks the rise and fall of its cast of Hollywood characters during the Roaring '20s.
The girl seems nice.
She is. She has no idea what's next.
There's a new sensibility now. People care about morals.
I've never done nothing except disappoint people my whole life. But I made it on my terms, not theirs.
This has been The Smart 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Have a great day.
Written, produced and published by Daft Dog.